friends. Today is lesson 6, letter E. First, open your workbook to page 66 and you'll see it says introducing letter E. The first thing we want to do is let's take a look at big E and little e. Do you think they look alike? Big E has lots of lines in it. Little e only has one line and a curve. So, I don't think they look very much alike. I'm going to circle N for no. I don't think they look alike. Let's look at big letter E first and see the lines it takes to make a big E. Do you think you see a big line down in big letter E? There it is. I'm going to circle big line down because I definitely see that right there in our big E. Do you see a line across in big E? Line across. Oh, I see 1, 2, 3 line across in big letter E. So I'm going to circle that one for sure. 3 times I see that. Do you see a slide line in big letter E going either way? Nope. How about some curve lines in big letter E? Nope, I don't see curve lines. Do you see any hook lines in big letter E? Nope, no dots either. So I think we're done. If you selected line down and line across, those are the lines it takes to build a big letter E. Let's take a look at little e. Do you see any lines going down for little letter E? Nope. Do you see a line across for little letter E? Yes, right there. This is a little bit crooked, but that is a line across. So I'm going to circle the line across. I see that. Do you see any slide lines in little letter E? Nope, me neither. How about this curve line? Do you see this curve line in letter E? Yes, we see that curve right there. So let's circle it. I don't see a curved line going this way though. And I see some hooks right here, but that's not the full shape or the full line. It goes all the way around like this. So no hooks and no dot. For little letter E, we just use a line across and a curve line. Great job, friends. Turn the page. We're on page 67. We're going to take apart the big letter E and learn the order in how we write these lines. See the big line down? We have 1, 2, 3 lines across. And that's how we're going to make them when we write them. We're going to hold our pencil the big kid way, make a line down, and then a line across, a line across, a line across. So we start at the start and go down, line down. We go to the top and we're going to go across at the top, across at the middle, and across at the bottom. Line down, line across, line across, line across. That's the order that we write little e. So when we put it back together, just tell your fingers what to do. Do it the same way. Line down, line across, line across, line across. 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 Okay, friends, now it's your turn to pause the video and practice making a big E. Tell your fingers what to do, and of course, make sure you're gripping the pencil the big kid way. I'll see you back in a minute. How'd you do with big E? I bet your fingers are getting so strong. Miss Doree forgot to do a handwriting exercise with you this morning to make our fingers strong. So I hope you're doing that on your own too. If you turn the page to 68, we have the little letter E. So let's take it apart. Remember, we start with that line across. It's usually right here, and then we circle around making this curve. So the right way to make a little E is to start with the line across and then make the curve. So that's why we're going to do it in that order right here. Watch me do it first, and then you could pause the video and try. Start at the star and make your line across, and then the next part of making an E is the curve. Line across, curve. Line across, curve. If we put little e back together and do it all together, we still do the same order. Line across, curve. Line across, curve. Line across, curve. Line across, curve. Line across, and curve. Look at that. Now it's your turn to try. I know curves can be hard, but you can do it. You've been practicing since you did letter C. So pause the video and give it a try. Okay, friends, now that we've done some handwriting and our hands are all warmed up, we need to learn the sounds of letter E. And did you know that E makes 3 sounds? Does that mean it's a vowel? We might need to sing the vowel song again to remind ourselves. Can you turn back to page 26? Here it is. Here's the vowel song, and I want you to sing it with me and see if you can hear that E is one of our special vowels. Are you ready? There are some letters that make more sounds, and this is what their names are. A, E, I, O, U. A, E, I, O, U. A, E, I, O, U. And sometimes letter Y. It likes to copy I. Did you hear letter E is one of the vowels? It's right there. So guess what? We're going to learn that E is a vowel and it makes 3 sounds. Are you ready to hear the story? Okay. When the little letter E's walked into their classroom, it wasn't a classroom at all. It looked like they were in a forest, and the most exciting thing they saw was a cave. Teacher E said it was an echo cave because whatever you shouted into it, the same sound came back. He demonstrated by cupping both of his hands around his mouth like this, and he shouted, echo! The sound echoed in the cave and came back to them, echo, getting softer every time until it stopped. Echo. The little E's were excited to give it a try, and each took a turn yelling, echo! When all the little letter E's were yelling into the cave at the same time, it got really, really loud. All of a sudden, a bunch of sleeping bats at the back of the cave started flying out of the cave, making a shrieking, screeching sound. Teacher E exclaimed, "Oh no, we must have woken up the bats inside of the cave." The bats were flying out of the cave and flapping all around the little E's. The E's were so scared that they covered their eyes and yelled, "Eek!" They didn't want to see those bats anymore. Can you cover your eyes and act scared and say, "Eek!" Then Teacher E instructed the little E's to hold still and be very quiet, so the excited bats would eventually go back into the cave and go to sleep. Teacher E put his finger up to his mouth and made a motion like, he didn't say shh, he just went like this and didn't make a sound. The little letter E's were completely silent to not disturb the bats. Once the bats were back in the cave, Teacher E reviewed the sounds of E. When the little E's yelled, echo, echo into Echo Cave, that was the short E sound. The long E sound is E, like when they covered their eyes and they were afraid of the bats and they said E. Then Teacher E explained that sometimes E is silent, like the E's didn't make a sound. The little letter E's practiced all their letter sounds, E, and now you try. Are you ready to sing the song with me? If you turn to page 72, here's the song, and we're going to sing it together doing the actions. Before I put the music on, let's just sing it together and do the actions with me. E says, eh. Put your hands around your mouth like you're shouting into the cave saying, eh, echo. B says, E. The E's were so scared, they were scared when the bats were coming out, so they covered their eyes, remember? E says, don't make a sound, just put your finger up like you're saying shh, but don't make a sound, just like this. E, like that. Okay, I think we're ready to try it. E says eh, E says E, E says E. Did you do it? When we do it with the music, it's a little faster, so we're going to practice one more time to make sure you get it. Let me turn this up. I don't know if it's up loud enough. Here we go. E says eh, E says E, E says E. Good job! Now you know all three sounds of letter E, the special vowel that makes three sounds. Can you think of some things around your house that start with E? Maybe you have a stuffed animal or a toy that's an elephant. Maybe your favorite holiday is Easter. You don't see very many things that start with a silent E, but we do see silent E's at the end of words. So I'm going to show you some of the examples. If you turn to page 73, the things that make an sound are Eskimo, elephant, elf, egg. Now remember the E sound, ear, eagle, Easter. Now here's two things that have a silent E at the end of their word. Do you see that number 9? The way you spell it is with a little silent E at the end. And same with the word cake. At the end of the word cake, there's a silent E. It doesn't make a sound in that word. When you're reading it, you just don't make the E sound at all. It's silent. Okay, friends. Now that Teacher E taught all the students the sounds, he wants to point to his whiteboard to show the E's examples of things that start with E, and there's nothing on his whiteboard. Will you help? Oh, I'm so glad you're here to help, because what you need to do is tear out page 73 like this. Maybe have somebody help you and get your scissors. You know I like to use loop scissors, but you can use the kid scissors that you have or buy some of these. Both work. Use your helper hand to hold the paper and cut along the outside lines first. We're going to make a line. Then my helper hand turns the page and I turn my scissors. Cut another straight line. Use my helper hand to turn the page. And I move my scissors to cut the other outside line. Turn. And the last line, ooh, it makes a square. All right, now I'm going to speed up the video while I cut out each one of these pictures, and I'll see you at the end. Okay, friends, we have our whiteboard here with no pictures on it, but good thing you just cut out all the pictures. First, let's put on our elf. E says eh, like elf. E says eh, like egg. Sorry, my dog is barking in the background. E says eh, like elephant. E says eh, like Eskimo. What's the other sound E makes? It says eh. E, that's right. Let's get the eagle. Let's get the picture of Easter. And ear. Now the last two pictures, remember they don't really make a sound. The silent E is at the end of the word. So 9 and cake have a silent E in the word. And teacher E wants to make sure the little E's remember that sometimes it's silent. Okay, friends, you did a great job learning the sounds. So I want to make sure you remember how to write the letter E's. So turn back to page 67. And do you remember what lines it takes to make a big E? Think about it. That's right. It's a line down and 3 lines across. So rewrite your big E. Line down, line across, line across, line across. 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 Did you do it? Okay, and we want to remember how to make little E. So turn the page to 68 and we'll do our line across, curve. Line across, curve. Line across, curve. Line across, curve. Line across, and curve. Now pause the video and you make your big E and little E. All right, now that we're back, you can get out your tactile card and remember how to make it on here. I like to tell my fingers what to do. Line down, line across, line across, line across. And I can feel how bumpy that is. And let's even try it with our eyes closed. Line down, line across, line across, line across. I could feel that bumpy glitter on my fingers. Let's do little E. Line across, curve. Now I'll try it with my eyes closed. Line across, curve. I did it. I could feel that bumpy glitter. All right, friends, some extra things you can do for letter E. Maybe look around your house and find some things that start with E. Also, look in your library of books for any letters that have an E in it. Some that I have is Elmer. It's about a cute little elephant. The Saggy Baggy Elephant, the little engine that could, or any other book that repeats E. You could go do some exercises. You could play on an Etch-a-Sketch if you have one. And even if it's not Easter, have an Easter egg hunt and count the eggs. Now, the other thing you can do is roll out your Play-Doh into long lines and build a big E or a little E. All right, friends, I'll see you next time. Bye.